Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Advanced Bass Fishing, and really appreciate you guys coming by the channel to check out the video and spend some time with me. Guys, today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite August and really early September plastic worms that is super versatile. Bass absolutely love it this time of year, and that's the Zoom Magnum trick worm here. We've been talking a little bit about the Magnum finesse worm, which is the shorter version. This is the Magnum trick worm. It's about 7 inches long at least. Large diameter worm, straight tail, guys. This is freaking deadly this time of year. When that water gets hot in August and September, this is one of the best worms you can possibly throw. So I'm gonna give you guys some tips and advice today on how to fish it and sort of talk about the scenarios, a couple different ways I like to rig it, and definitely think it's gonna add up to some good fish for you guys over the next month, because the time of filming this video, we're in the first week of August, so we're gonna get into that in today's episode. And also guys, I'll put my Magnum trick worm link and my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of this video if you guys would like to get a couple packs there. Probably the best colors, I mean, this is red bug here. This is probably my favorite color, but I also use green pumpkin and black, depending upon water visibility, that we'll get into a little bit in the video here. Okay guys, if you're not familiar with it, Magnum trick worm, this is a heavy plastic worm. And the thing about this thing, this is not a new style. This style of worm has been around for over 60 years. I remember my dad back in the late 60s and early 70s, he had a metal tackle box, and I always used to love rummaging around through his tackle box. And he had a bunch of big, called them rubber worms back then, but a bunch of straight tail plastic worms just like this, made by Cream and Fliptail and some other companies. I remember he had a couple in there that was like as big around as my finger. And we'd always go to this tackle store in Joplin, Missouri called Southtown Sporting Goods, or Southtown Sporting Goods. But it was such a cool experience because you'd walk into this tackle store, and it's like it was an old time tackle store. It's like the floors were unlevel, and you heard this, they had a big minnow tank in the back, and it was bubbling, and it smelled like fish in there because of the minnow tank and the worms. And you had they had big bins, like wooden bins that were set up in the store that were just full of plastic worms like this, these big straight tail worms. And guys, my dad caught some hogs on those straight tails, and it still works just as good today. And it's always gonna work good because the straight tailed worm does not telegraph. There's no vibration on the tail. It's natural, something that doesn't give itself away. This type of worm style is always gonna be effective for bass fishing. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about when the Magnum trick worm is going to work and how you want to rig it and that type of stuff. There's actually three. Let's talk about three. There's two primary ones, but there's actually three ways that I like to fish it this time of year. The first way I like to fish it is on a light Texas rig, like a 3/16 ounce sinker. Usually rig it with a 3/0 straight shank Gamakatsu heavy cover worm hook, 15 to 17 pound test Seaguar and Vizex line, and just pitching it and flipping it around whatever cover I have available on the lake I'm fishing, visible cover. Probably my favorite area, or not probably, it is my favorite structure for this time of year, would be any type of boat docks. You put that Magnum Magnum trick worm on a 3/16 ounce sinker, fish it around boat docks. It's one of the best lures that you can catch them on. And also guys, in correlation with that is with the shaky head. You can get those larger shaky heads. I'm not talking about the ones you use for finesse fishing, but they make what's called a Magnum shaky head in most tackle stores. In fact, I'll put some of those Magnum shaky head links in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of this video. But like up at Lake of the Ozarks, where I fish here in Missouri, one of the big secrets up there during the summertime that locals use is they put that Zoom Magnum trick worm on a big Magnum shaky head, and they skip it and pitch it around those boat docks. So sometimes they want the Texas rig presentation, and sometimes they want the shaky head presentation. From what I have found, and this is just not on boat docks, this can be, I don't care if you're flipping lily pads or pitching around lay down trees or whatever, is if you have water visibility that is under 2 feet, they prefer the Texas rig. There's something about the way the bait sets in the water. I don't know what it is about it, but you get more bites on a Texas rig if that water visibility is under 2 foot. But if you've got over 2 foot of visibility, they like the shaky head setup. And most of the time on the shaky head setup, you're using anywhere between a 1/4 to 1/2 ounce size. It just seems like the shaky head, you can't get those Magnum shaky heads in a real light head. I prefer like the 1/4 ounce, and sometimes what I'll do is I'll take a file and I'll file half of that off there to where I've got the bigger hook that's in the Magnum shaky head, but I've got a light head on it, and it falls a little bit slower there in that situation. So you need both. You need the Texas rig and you need the Magnum shaky head. And I fish both of them on the same pound test lines. Again, 15, 17 pound test, Seagar and the VizX fluorocarbon. And there's nothing special about it. I mean, it's like it'd be the same as you're flipping a tube or a creature bait or whatever. It's just the profile of that worm. And the best that I can tell, we talk a lot about on the channel about moods and personality of the fish and how they prefer different lure categories and different lure profiles at different times of the year. When you get into August and the water temperature is maxed out, usually in August you have your maximum hottest water temperature. I have found a lot of times that they prefer certain styles of plastic worms in certain situations. Sometimes they want a little bit of a curl tail, sometimes they want a straight tail, but I have found when the fishing's tough and the water temperature is absolutely at the hottest, that a lot of times they like that straight-tailed worm. I mean, it just works really good compared to other ones. And it changes day to day. That's one of the things about fishing is there's no absolutes. So you just sort of have to keep an open mind with that. But day in and day out, man, if you, and I've talked a little bit about this in some of my past videos, like using that Zoom Magnum finesse worm, which is a straight-tailed worm. Most of the time when the fishing gets really tough and it's hot, they like a straight-tailed plastic worm more. And sometimes they still like the bigger size. This is one of the anomalies because if you've watched some of my videos before, you hear me talking about they like a downsized, smaller bait in the heat of the summer, late summer and early fall. This is one of the exceptions to the rule that I'm talking about is this Magnum trick worm. Now, this is why bass fishing is so difficult because I can lay out scenarios about things that work really good, but there's always there's exceptions to the rules all the time. That's why it is so difficult to pinpoint and consistently catch bass every single day because of these changing moods and personalities of the fish. And also with colors, talk a little bit about that. Like I said, my favorite is that red bug. I use the black and I use the green pumpkin too. But I sort of have a water clarity gauge to determine this. If that water visibility is sort of like over 2.5 or 3 feet, then I like the green pumpkin, you know, especially if it's over 3 feet. Let's say 3 feet. 3 foot or over, I'll use the green pumpkin. And another thing to remember about this is your water visibility. If you say 3 foot visibility, that's not it all the time because 3 foot of visibility looks different in a sunny day versus a cloudy day. So sometimes if you have 2 foot of visibility and a bright sunny day, it acts the same as far as color preferences as if it would be if you had different light intensities. So always keep that in mind. In other words, the darker the day, the darker the day, the more darker plastic worm you should use, and the brighter the day, sometimes the lighter, more natural color is the best way to put that. So 3 foot of visibility for the green pumpkin. That water visibility of sort of between that 1.5 to 2 foot of visibility, that's where I really like the red bug. And then the water visibility that is what I call dirty water, under 1.5 feet of visibility, I'll use the black a lot. That's just sort of my color preference with it. But anyway, guys, it's a really good worm, summertime of the year. I don't use it hardly any other time than the summer. Oh, one thing I did forget, the third way to do that, guys, this is a good bait to throw on a Carolina rig. So if the lake you're fishing has got a Carolina rig bite on it, like you're dragging deeper points or ledges or something this time of year, which some people do, that Magnum trick worm is really good on a Carolina rig. A lot of people really like it for that too. So just another bait to add to your arsenal, guys. Hope it helps you catch some, and we'll check in later.